concerning the King James Version of the Bible, just like to say it's the text, silly. So people talk about, all the revisions of the Bible. King James isn't the original anymore because there have been revisions. Well, the revisions that were made to King James Version were things to standardize spelling and to make some correction of that nature to make it easier to read. The King James Version was originally printed in two different publishing houses, one at Cambridge and one in Oxford, and they are slightly different, but the objection that we'd have would not be with those slight differences because they're working off the same text. The problem with all of the other translations of the Bible that are out there, versions of the Bible, is they work off of a different text than the King James Version people work off. They work off the Nestle and Westcott Hort text instead, which is based on three ancient manuscripts that Westcott and Hort tried to promote as being more accurate than the received text that the King James was translated off of, because they were older and, according to Westcott Hort and their advocates, more reliable. So here's the thing: over the years, just saw an incredibly beautiful bird. Never seen anything that color before. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Anyway, so the King James advocates, what we're saying is it's the text. So those changes that were made by the revisions, that were made in the King James over the years, were just standardizing spelling and making a few tweaks like that. But they worked off of. They intentionally did not change the text of the scripture. They did not use different manuscripts. Now, sometimes people have tried to kind of throw things in and kind of deceive us a little bit. So, for instance, the New King James Version, they're saying, well, we're using the same manuscripts that the King James translators used. We're just modernizing the language, but that isn't true. They modernize the language and they make their tweaks using the Westcott and Hort ideas. And so they started using materials that the King James translators did not and chose not to use. Some of the new publishers today are doing some of that same sort of stuff, only they're not telling us. They're telling us that it's a King James Version of the Bible, but they're making changes, subtle changes and undocumented changes. But those of us who read the Bible regularly, study the Bible on a daily basis, multiple times a day basis, can look at them and say, wait a minute, this is not in the King James Version. Because what they're doing is they're changing the King James. They're not even saying it's a different translation, different version, or an updated one. They're just, when they're printing the next run of the King James, they're making some tweaks, but they're making those tweaks using the modern texts that are Nestle and Westcott Hort based. And so that's deceptive, and I think it's evil.